In our politics lead, a brand new exclusive CNN poll is revealing why America seems to be souring on President Biden's leadership and on the U.S. economy. Despite positive news on the employment front and on Wall Street, for weeks we've been seeing inflation driving up the costs for nearly everything: food, gas, cars. Now, Americans say this is a bigger problem for the economy, inflation, than COVID is. Let's get right to CNN's political director, David Chalian. David, explain where this economic anxiety is coming from.
Well, we asked people, all these economic issues that are out there, do you see it as a major problem or a minor problem? Look at this list, Jake. You see food costs, supply chain issues, housing costs. It's all nearly 8 in 10 Americans in this poll saying that is a major problem for the economy. In fact, COVID-19, 2/3 of Americans see that as a major problem, but in comparison to the rising cost issue, it is way down there. So that's the real concern. And then, of course, we see a huge majority saying the government's doing too little about inflation. 72% say that the government response to inflation is simply too little. 22% say the right amount. Only 5% say the government's doing too much.
And President Biden obviously has a very ambitious agenda. Do the American people feel like these policies from Biden will change any of this?
I think this may be one of the most troubling numbers inside our poll for the president today. 45%, nearly half of the Americans in this poll, say that Biden's policies have worsened economic conditions. 30% say they've improved. 25% no effect at all. So 70% say they've worsened or no effect at all, Biden's policies. If you look back and compare that to Obama in 2009, it was not nearly that bad of a score on his policies making things worse. And then if you look at how Biden has handled the issues and his approval on each issue, the economy, he's way down. He's upside down. Look down there. 45% approve of his handling of the economy. 54% disapprove. That's the same when you say about helping the middle class. There's only one issue area where he has a majority approval, and that's COVID-19 with 54% approval.
Oh, that's fascinating. And this is a sobering year-end report card for the president and his whole administration. The CNN poll has Biden's approval at 49% approval, which remains unchanged from last month, 51% disapprove. But we also have this thing called the CNN, that's our poll right there. We also have this thing called the CNN poll of polls, which includes the 5 most recent national polls, and we average those together. And that has them lower, 45% approval, 50% disapproval. At what point does the White House start freaking out? Because these are not positive numbers for the midterms, nor for re-election, although that's a lifetime away.
Yes, a lifetime away. And even the midterms are 11 months away, Jake. You talk to White House aides as well. I don't get the sense that this is a team that does a lot of freaking out, but there is clear concern. They understand the political environment as the calendar turns the page into the election year that they're standing right now, and this real economic pinch that Americans are feeling, it creates a real tough terrain for Democrats next year.
Let's bring in CNN's Caitlin Collins, traveling with President Biden in tornado-ravaged Kentucky. Caitlin, this poll it's just devastating for President Biden. Only 34% of those polled see Biden as a leader. 66% say they have some doubts. As we get closer to the midterms, what's the takeaway message for Democrats? Do they need to start distancing themselves from President Biden?
I think that depends on where they are, of course, Jake, where they're running these races from. You know, when it comes to the president's actual own poll numbers, the disapproval, the approval, certainly, of course, that was not the top of mind for him when he was here in Kentucky today, making those tours, meeting with those local leaders. But it is something that is for concern for Democrats back in Washington, for the president's political aides back at the White House, something that they are tracking and monitoring closely because, of course, they are paying attention to that ahead of those midterm elections. And so when it comes to these numbers on the economy, which has long been a strong suit of President Biden's ever since he was a candidate and certainly when he first took office, I think that's probably the most concerning for them because it's matching those numbers of people's confidence in his handling of the economy with their rising concerns about inflation, about the supply chain, all of these issues that people have that go hand in hand together. And I think when you talk to aides at the White House, when you talk to political advisors of this president, they say these aren't quick fixes. These aren't issues that can be changed quickly, or this isn't something that's going to fade from people's public view or public mind. It's something that is going to stay in the forefront of the news cycle for months to come.
Yeah, but Caitlin, beyond the midterms, there is the Biden agenda. There's still that big social safety net spending bill, Build Back Better. It's not any closer to getting passed in the Senate. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, a Democrat, still not willing to say he supports it. I don't even know if that bill is going to be brought up for a vote, to be quite frank, anytime soon. And the less popular a president is, the less of his agenda he can get through Congress.
Yeah, and the White House had kind of been tying getting that bill passed to his number, saying that they'd bump up eventually once they got these big pieces of his economic agenda passed, the infrastructure bill, now this big bill that they were hoping, Jake, to have passed by Christmas. But despite multiple conversations that have happened in recent days between President Biden and Senator Manchin, they have not come any closer together. And a lot of the concerns that you've heard from Senator Manchin that he says he has about this bill are ones that he's really been saying and talking about for months, and they have not come to any kind of consensus on that. And so the idea that they're not going to get that passed by Christmas seems pretty likely, whether they try to do it in the new year and what that looks like, because I think one thing that the White House does recognize is the closer they get to those midterm elections, it makes it a lot harder to pass big legislation, more untenable. So they are trying to get it passed as quickly as possible. I do think that will be a big question because, of course, it's not just his approval, it's whether or not they could physically get it done with the votes if they, of course, lose control of the House or lose that very thin margin in the Senate that they have with the vice president's tie-breaking vote come November.
Yeah, and David, how long do you think Democrats have to change this narrative, to get Build Back Better passed, to get other legislative items through the House and Senate before they get clobbered?
I mean, you usually see an electoral environment sort of start to take hold in June, July, and then it's real hard you need some sort of external event. But Jake, you brought up the leadership points. I just want to say, you said 66%. That's what our poll found of people who have reservations about his leadership. 36% of Democrats say they have some doubts or reservations. He also has this issue of his home team, Democrats, not strongly approving him. There's an intensity gap. There's a rallying around effort that needs to happen here. His legislation would help that, but it's totally stalled out at the moment. And so you have Democrats not nearly as enthusiastic at the moment as the president would need them to be heading into next year's election.
All right, David Chalian, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Caitlin Collins as well. Coming up.